from the Salvation Army National Headquarters,
this is the Fight for Good podcast.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Fight for Good podcast. I'm your host, Lieutenant Colonel Tim Foley, broadcasting from my office here at National Headquarters in Old Town, Alexandria, Virginia, on the banks of the Potomac River. It's a beautiful, hot, muggy spring afternoon, and I hope you're having a great day wherever you're at in this country and in this world. Thank you for taking a few moments out of your day to listen to our podcast. And with me, as always, my left and right hand, my left and right foot, and the one that does all the proper thinking around here, all the deep thinking, Mr. Jeff McDonald, our editorial director. Hello, Jeff.
Hello, Colonel Foley. It's great to be with you in this time of change, looking forward, looking backward, and it's exciting.
It indeed is exciting. And also with us, as always, from the beginning, she has been here working all the magic, our producer, Elizabeth. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hello there.
Well, you guys, it's just another day in the office for me. We're still working remotely. I haven't seen either one of you in person for quite a while. I think, Elizabeth, I haven't seen you in person. When was the last time I saw you in person?
I think it was November.
Was it? It was real briefly.
Yeah.
You told me I had to get into a bubble suit and some other things. Well, we've come a long way, and you guys are getting closer to coming back to the office. I know that's going to be a lot of different mixed feelings and new work habits and other things that everybody's going to have to kind of go through. But how great the team has been, the entire publications team, through this pandemic, mid-March of 2020 up until this point. Wow, Jeff, a lot of great things have happened in that time.
Yeah, it's really hard to convey exactly how invigorating, challenging, rewarding it's been. Because it's like neuroplasticity. Once you are in a certain track, you tend to deepen those grooves. Working remotely causes us to shift our thinking, our patterns. And I think it's a tribute to you and to all the staff that we were able to do that with flexibility. And I must say that, this podcast is in honor of you and your tenure at National Headquarters, especially as Editor-in-Chief and Program Secretary and National Literary Secretary. Thanks to your encouragement, your wisdom, I think we made that transition well. So thank you.
Well, and for our listeners, just to kind of clue you in, my wife, Cindy, and myself are under farewell orders, and we've been given our marching orders to become the divisional leaders of the great Northwest Division in the United States. Northwest Division is in the Western Territory, and it encompasses the entire state of Washington, northern Idaho, and a good portion of the state of Montana. My wife, Cindy, has been named the divisional commander, Jeff, which I'm extremely proud of that designation for her. She's well suited for it. We've had her on the podcast before, so it's not just a doting husband bragging about his lovely wife, but I will brag about her. And then I'm going to be the divisional leader for officer development. And I'm kind of saying, Jeff, that's like being a pastor to the pastors is how I'm kind of looking at it.
It seems like a great role for you, especially, I know that you were moved to write the book Rest for the Rest of Us during your time here at NHQ, focusing on the need for rejuvenation and rest and, inspiration, aside from the very demanding mission requirements that officers are under. So it just seems like a really good fit because I think, Colonel, you relate to people so well, and you're open and honest, and you're willing to hear people. You listen. Those are Great quality. So I think that role for you is is really good.
Well, you guys, I'm going to have to pay you extra now, I guess. But Cindy and I are heading out in a few weeks. By the time this hits the airwaves, we'll probably already be on the road, literally making a long trek out to our new home in Seattle. And we're going to be stopping by and visiting Salvation Army places on the east side of our division, mostly in Montana, and one corps in Idaho, before we take up our new residence and our new duties. So we talked about, we're kind of handing the baton over. There's a lot of things happening behind the scenes with our publications. The team's working really hard on putting the July issue to bed. And Jeff, that's the first issue that I haven't had really any direction or feel for. And we've made that transition early because my successor is right here, and our multi-talented editor of Peer Magazine, Captain Jamie Satterley, is taking on most of my duties as editor-in-chief. She's not going to have that title, but a director of publications. And I'm just thrilled to be here to kind of help pass the baton over. And so I believe Captain Jamie and you, Jeff, are going to be the ongoing hosts for the Fight for Good podcast as it moves into the future.
We are going to try to keep this baby going. And, in thinking about that, I know. Could you just share with us your philosophy about leadership? Because I know you have some key words, and I think the fact that you launched this podcast, you came into this position wanting to launch a podcast, is indicative of, I know your emphasis on innovation. What else do you look for in your work and work with others?
Well, there's a couple things. One is innovation. The Salvation Army has been really a leader, and I know there's a lot of critics within the organization saying, we're not doing this, not doing that. But really, even during the pandemic, both the church and government entities were looking, and the general public was looking at the Salvation Army to guide us. And Jeff, it's interesting where we're going in the Northwest. Historical financial support, historical praises of what the Salvation Army has done, doors opening up. There's just all these incredible opportunities that are waiting that my wife and I get to be a privilege to be a part of with Team Northwest. So we're very excited about that. So you have that sense of innovation, you have that sense of inspiration. And we're not dealing with just words here. We're not dealing with just slogans and PR spin and all that kind of stuff. We're dealing with the Word of God, and we're dealing with that Word as inspired in the lives of transformation and lives that can be transformed by the power of God's Holy Spirit. And then we're also, you got in innovation, inspiration, and then you have also imagination. And you guys know how much of a goofball I am. My wife has told me I have to temper down my comedic things, because every person I meet, every group I'm in, it's like a new audience for me. But I think part for me is you have this innovation, you have this inspiration that comes, but we've got to continue to dream. And I had the privilege, Jeff, of coming here from San Francisco, where my wife and I'm from the Bay Area, and I love San Francisco, and we love the ministry we had in San Francisco. We had all kinds of opportunities to walk across these bridges into the community and in Central California. And, I came here and I was kind of in a clerk position as the assistant chief secretary for a while. And I liked it, but it really wasn't kind of in my wheelhouse, so much. And then I was given the opportunity, as you recall, Jeff, we were talking again offline. I started on the publications team in November of 2018. And as soon as I got here, wow, the imagination just went wild. And so I think part of my philosophy of ministry is it's kind of those three words. There's other things I might allude to it in a little bit, but we need imagination. We need to continue to dream. William Booth said it all the time. That and better will do. That and better will do. If something's not working, stop it. Try something else. That doesn't work. Stop it. Try something else. There's no secret cows here. So I'm looking at, we talked about, doing a podcast. We didn't know how we were going to kind of do it. And I was like, well, I don't even know how do they make these things? And then lo and behold, you and I think it was in April 2018, we interviewed this young lady named Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And bam.
Man, she kind of impressed us, didn't she? And she said golly gee during the interview, which
the whole time.
I just was like, hey, this kid.
It's good that she didn't use other words,
Right.
But, it's just amazing when you start dreaming like this kind of thing, how God rises up people and abilities. And, okay, the Fight for Good podcast is not, topping any awards or the charts, but I just think the future for this podcast is really, really super bright. And so much so I'm going to have to wear some shades in the rainy skies of Seattle because of the glow that's going to come through the interviews. And I'm looking forward on some of those long drives that I have ahead of me all over the Northwest to be listening to you and Captain Jamie and everybody else that you're bringing on. So there'll be a bit of me that said, yeah, you know what? I was one of a team that helped get that going. And so here we are today.
You were the motivator, no doubt about it. And so when we start dropping the war cry using drones out in the Northwest, we'll tip our hat to your innovation.
Well,
strategy.
they're already using them there. I mean, Amazon's already delivering packages that way. So,
yeah.
Whatever. But
What's funny though about this, the secret really about this work we're involved in is that it is so engaging, so fun, so involving. And we're trying, we're trying to take the pulse of culture and the Army and relay, inspiring and informative information to people, informative content to people. And you know what? I remember when you came on board, how you just immediately, you just embraced everything. You wanted to know how things worked at, not just internally with us, but at the printer, at our other vendors, how things operate, the nuts and bolts of it, in addition to the, overall strategy, it was really, and it's not for everybody, but I think, that quality of embracing what we're doing really paid off. And, you talk about, what the future, I think a lot of what you have put in place has set a precedent for the future. You've invited new authors and writers for us, et cetera, and, stressed millennial involvement and all those things. But I have to say, Colonel, can you believe this is our 86th podcast?
Something. It's some high number.
And you look at the list of who we've engaged with, it goes from the general and the Pedals, Commissioner Pedal and the general, to the lieutenant in Minneapolis who was in the thick of the turmoil there with, racial, concerns, and how her corps was weathering that and representing God and the Army through it. I mean, we've had such a wide variety. Do any stand out to you in particular?
Well, I just I think about some of the celebrity folks that we've interviewed, quote unquote celebrities. I remember your interview with Mrs. Rogers.
Oh yeah.
When we talked to the director from that wrote on the Charleston
right.
church shooting.
Right.
That was pretty impressive. I mean, so many of them stand out. We were recording something earlier today. My wife and I, a farewell message. Ironically, we can't be here for our farewell from NHQ just because of a scheduling conflict. So they asked us to record something, but we were both reflecting on some things, and we were remembering the time I can't remember if we put bits of it into a podcast. I think we might have in the early days when we were interviewing the farmer and Major Donna Miller in Iowa. Um, when we were sat in their farmhouse when his land had been surrounded by water, one of the Platte River, I think it was it. And then when I was riding on a Black Hawk helicopter, now that wasn't a podcast, but that was related to War Cry. Up in Alaska, it was like 5 below zero out, and I'm on this military thing going, what? Wow, this is pretty cool. So I've had a lot of different, kind of neat engagements. And I think our podcast, when we look back at some of the different people we saw, and I'll always remember the first time I listened to our podcast, I was driving back from Williamsburg from an officer's retreat, and Elizabeth had just put it together as a sample, and we're driving back, and I was like, and I listened to that opening music. It was like, oh, that's so cool. And then we're talking, and then I think my wife said, when it was over, she said, well, that was interesting. So I was like, what do you think? So we've come a long way with it. We've kind of emerged, and I think a podcast is just one tool. It's not there's a lot of people that's all they do. They podcast and YouTube and TikTok and Marco Polo or whatever they do, but it's just one tool that we used, and we've developed it. And even in the pandemic, we've gone from Elizabeth mixing 4 different sound things together to this great thing called Zencaster, and we're able to just interview people all over the world. Remember the time we had the general, the pedals were on, and and Elizabeth calls, I think.
He FaceTimed me.
Yeah, he FaceTimed me and saying, Tim, I don't know how to. Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah, what a different world.
And then all the different people that we can't forget Michelle Caceres. She started out with us at the beginning, and then we evolved. We kind of rotated her into segued into a kind of a different approach where I think she's a lot more freer and open when she's doing one-on-one with the interviews. So we've had all these different influencers and millennials that have been on. So yeah, not one thing particularly stands out, but I do think that we were embracing some of the topics of the day, maybe not as fully as some people in our organization really wanted us to, or coming up on the different sides, political sides or whatever. But I think, Jeff, we've walked a pretty good line. And I look back and I think we've had some pretty significant and holy moments together.
It's interesting. It is almost, the idea of koinonia, that there, just in talking with folks and sharing with each other, there is a synergy that, and a communion that, just takes place. And I think we've experienced that with the podcast, and hopefully some listeners have experienced that secondhand as we've grown into it.
Well, I remember I was on another committee at NHQ that I was a part of, and I was in this Zoom meeting, and it was somebody from another university, and they're like, "Oh, I just love your podcast. I just love Elizabeth."
Yeah, right.
And I was like, wow. Yeah, that was
well,
that was unexpected. I mean, how could you love Elizabeth?
Yeah, really. She's just so exuberant. But so what have you found most rewarding about your time in editorial work, Colonel? Well,
I think I'm going out of here, Jeff, with another little alliteration, and it's 2 P's. One is to make sure that we maintain a pioneering voice in what we're doing. You have generations you have a generation right now that's, I don't mean it in a bad way, but we have a couple of generations that are becoming biblically illiterate, and they don't know the basics of the Bible. They don't know the basics of what it is the Salvation Army believes. In essence, they like the Salvation Army, but they don't know why they like the Salvation Army. And I think there's an opportunity for us to give forth a prophetic voice of not doom and gloom, but of hope. And that is what that 4-letter word of hope in all of our publications, everything from Word and Deed, from the Crest books, from what we do with Peer Magazine and with the War Cry. The prophetic word is hope. People don't have to give up. The sky is not falling. It's going to be okay. And Jeff, we had that in the last issue that I was responsible for. We had that letter to the editor of the person who was in jail and just said, I was ready to end it. And I must have read that story on hope 50 plus times. I think that's a huge takeaway. And to continue, I also think one of my personal prophetic voices is to continue to speak into this organization that is doing the most good, but to remind the people in the organization, both employees, soldiers, and officers, the machine will eat you up if you don't maintain balance in your life. And there's a lot of people that are hurting right now. They kind of pat me on the head and say, hey, thank you for that book on Sabbath. One of these days I'm going to read it, and you're like, well, pandemic would have been a perfect time for you to, kind of do that. But I still think there are pieces in the future that are going to come out of publications, other authors, other people that need to speak prophetically, and also, continue to do the pioneering, finding new ways. Jeff, that is a big thing that you taught me, because you've said it on many occasions to the staff, and you've said it to me over and over, not in a bad way, just kind of, it just comes up. Hey, there's a fluidity of what we're doing here. We've got to adapt and change. And we've done that with every issue. It's been like we get a blank canvas and we're trying different things. We try different looks. We try different feels. We try different approaches of content and pioneering. Jeff, I've said we need new voices. God bless our saints, and we have some great senior officers, age 60 and above, like myself. But there's a lot of young voices out there that we need to hear, and I'm hoping for more pioneering of the war cry, of cultivating new authors. I was very grateful for Colonel Henry Garapi giving me an opportunity as a young officer to write. And I'm grateful for the opportunity that I gave to a few people to write. And I hope that in the future, they'll be given opportunities for other people like myself to be able to write and then pioneer into these new worlds that we're traveling.
I'm glad you mentioned the letters to the editor that we get, and a couple in particular cited your articles. One on that editorial on hope that you wrote, and the other I know you wrote on cancel culture, and that Christmas is a time of hope, and for real, substantial hope, and not false hope. And the word of God will work its will, and we are just trying to offer our skills to advance that. And I appreciate the Army's investment in the literary work of the Army, and then the foundation we have. The technology we're using now, for example, is just wonderful, and I'm appreciative of that.
Jeff, I came in here with only one thing that I knew. Now, I have all the credentials. I've studied theology and master's and a doctorate in the subject and everything else like that. But there's only one thing I came in here that I really, really knew. And I knew that God's word never returns void. What the prophet Isaiah had to say about God's word, because I'm living proof of how God's word can take a life that was devoid of hope and spirit and filled me with love and with joy and with a peace that only can come by God through what he promises us in his word. And I've been mindful of that. As you know, I like to joke that they got the wrong Foley as the editor. I mean, my wife is a wordsmith. She's a grammatician. She's brilliant. She was the high school newspaper editor and yearbook editor at our high school. And I was like, I'm not a grammatician. I'm just kind of like a clown who comes up with a few things. But I get the inspiration of God's Spirit has come through my pen, so to speak, or through my typewriter. Jeff, the one thing I'm looking forward to out of this position, I can go back and I can put 2 spaces at the end of a period instead of 1.
I thought we had got that. I thought we had just eradicated that from your repertoire.
I don't like that rule. ... 2 spaces, you know. But I in all seriousness, I think that, you know, we have collectively, as a team, we still have a great ministry through the written word. And what continues to come out the magazine and the continued sense of hope it's bringing and the salvation that it's bringing to people. The magazine doesn't do it. The Salvation Army doesn't do it. But God uses these mechanisms as a means of bringing hope and joy and peace in the world.
I always think of C.S. Lewis's description of that rebirth. I think he might have been riding a bicycle or walking one day after he had gone through quite an elaborate exploration of faith and things and Christianity. And he said, it was as if I was asleep and all of a sudden I was awake. Thought that was really a good description of what we, of what God offers through his son.
And my devotions this morning, I was reading again, one of my favorite stories in the book of Numbers. And when I taught Jeff for many years at the training college, I taught Old Testament, I think for 8 years. I was there 9 years. And I think 8 of those years I was the Old Testament professor. And one of my favorite stories is Balaam's donkey, and how Balaam's donkey just would lay down. He saw danger ahead. He saw the angel of the Lord saying, stop, you know, and then poor Balaam's donkey got beat up. And then finally the angel of the Lord said, Balaam's donkey starts talking to him like, what are you doing? I've been faithful to you all these years. I'm protecting you. And then the angel of the Lord appears. And I know sometimes we are kind of like Balaam's donkey in publications, you know, we're kind of bah. And then, but, you know, we have something to say, and there's warning to people. There's, you know, God is really not to be messed with. And in this life, one can find abundance. I don't sit here and think every day about what heaven's going to be like, because I have no idea what heaven's going to be like. All I know is I have the opportunity to live this day, and I have been a blessed man to have sat in the publications wing of national headquarters since November of 2018 to this moment, to be working with the myriad of different people, different authors, different people that have inputted all kinds of different things. And nobody can take that away from me. They can move me out of an appointment, but you can't take away those memories and that ministry that we as a collective body did together. And I'm very proud. So I would continue to encourage you to be Balaam's donkey and keep speaking. Now,
yeah, it's well, you know, it is important because, you know, we have to acknowledge that this culture is fractured, and you're right, biblical, you know, the historic Christian tradition is not well known, and is people see it as a pejorative when it's actually the opposite. So,
well, we're in exile. We're in post exile now, because even the word evangelical is being associated with kind of a right wing spur. But there's a lot of weird stuff that doesn't represent me. And the Salvation Army is apolitical, and we have done our best trying to not promote nationalism and not trying to promote one party over another party, but to promote the holistic gospel that brings health and holiness to the heart that is ready. And Jeff, I really think there are incredible bright days ahead for the publications team. And, I look forward to seeing, what's ahead. I haven't gone down all the avenues that we could have gone down, but, we got the circulation figured out. We got the peer magazine kind of launched, and the award-winning magazines, and we continue to put out, I think, a really relevant product that we all should be proud of. In fact, I got a text last night, somebody thanking me for my letter, the thing I put in the June issue, and said, "That's so true of you, Tim, because you're always one that sings the praises of the people around you instead of your own praises." And that's how we do it. That's how Cindy and I have done it. All our ministry. That's how we're going to do in the Northwest. It's another philosophy I live by is Ray Kroc's adage. He had a lot of adages when he was building the McDonald's empire, but one of them, he said, "No one of us is greater than the rest of us." So when we start promoting ourselves in elite capacities, that I have this position and that position, and your ego is around all those positions, it's just destined to failure. I'm humbled by the opportunity the Salvation Army gave me. I didn't see it in myself, but when I'm done, I'm going to walk out of here going, I did a pretty good job. I'm very, very proud, and I'm going to be very sad when I don't have daily associations with good people like you two. So I count myself as a blessed man to have been here.
Well, we can certainly feel the same. We feel the same way, Colonel, about you. And, your model of leadership is needed and, not always at the forefront of people. But I do have to ask, what do you see as the challenges for the Army moving forward, the Army at large? The opportunities, the challenges it faces, and what the voice of the podcast, the publications should be?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And, another life lesson that I've learned direct from Scripture and direct from, I've talked to you before about this, Jeff. I go by impressions. I've never heard the audible voice of God, but I get these really strong impressions at times because of discernment that I have. And one of the impressions I have right now is Salvation Army leadership internationally, nationally, territorially has got to be silent and start listening. And that means when you listen, you don't need to give a myriad of advice and let's fix 1, 2, 3. Let's do it this way. I really think leadership in the Salvation Army, and I'm talking about myself, and I'm talking about anybody else that is in a position where there are officers and soldiers under your care. We've got to be silent and start listening. There are some really deep-seated hurts, the racial divide, the inequities that exist. We can easily give a lot of lip service. And things I've been thinking about from some of the reading that I've done is we need to start focusing on the upper church, the upper room component in the Salvation Army. I think we're making movements towards that. We're starting to think about spiritual life perhaps more than we have ever before. not only myself, but other colleagues of mine that are spouses of the divisional commanders are going to be challenged out in the West with this whole idea of being a divisional leader for officer development. And to me, that means we need to listen to our officers. We need to really, really hear and be a part of the healing process that has to take place, and help some of the younger generations understand how to do ministry now, how we do ministry now versus when I was commissioned in 1982 in the year 2021 it's archaic. So, we're going off the map, and we're going into uncharted territory, and we need to listen, and we need to rely on each other. I have so much, Jeff, loved relying on the staff on your team. We have people that are brilliant with their graphic understanding, their technical advice, maybe try this or that, those sorts of things. So I would say we need to listen, and we need to find balance for rest. We don't need to make rest an idol, and we don't need to make our families an idol. We just need to start experimenting and trying to make sure that we're finding balance in our life. And the third thing that I would say is, Jesus really is the answer. Christ is, I know it sounds simple, but he promises us abundant life. He is the way, the truth, and the life. No one's going to come to the Father but through him. We believe that truth. And my job is not to change somebody from their behavior. The Salvation Army does not save people. It's the gospel that saves people. It's the power of the Holy Spirit. And I don't have to argue theology with anybody. You take it up with him. Didn't call me to sit here and be judging people, right? So I think that those are kind of like three areas. And I also think that we're in a new period of pioneering. And so we need to be open to new horizons. And Jeff, I'm like coming to the end of my active officership. This will probably be my last appointment, more than likely, before I go into retirement. And so I'm holding the baton really loosely, and I'm just sharing when I can. I don't force myself on people. And I've appreciated the platform that I've had these last couple of years. But God has given me platforms before. He gave us the whole Croc Center ministry. We pioneered that. We pioneered a lot of different curriculum that we were doing for 9 years at the training college in the West. We had 300 plus officers come through there. I've never asked for any of this kind of stuff. It's just kind of been dumped on my lap, and I'm just so grateful for those opportunities.
Okay, so Colonel, you need to know that you have a lot of fans behind you. Believe me. And I must say that, God has blessed you. God uses you. And you are a true reflection of him. And, you've made a big impact. You make a big impact in that way. And we're thankful for that. And, you think about the Army's mission statement, it's a love of God. Love is kind of the often unspoken, but essential ingredient in all of this, to live out that love.
And I know it's like, oh, it's got to be more complicated than that. No, it doesn't. I love what my wife says all the time, and I've probably said this before to you guys and also on the podcast, but God's in the judging business, and he's not asking us for his help. It's not up to me. I'm not supposed to sit here with the rocks and stone people. I'm just supposed to love them. And wow, yeah. It's been a great ride. Personally, we have enjoyed living on the East Coast. The Mid-Atlantic part of the United States is just absolutely stunning. The people have been lovely. We've enjoyed working here. We've enjoyed exploring the areas. Jeff, I'm kind of like eating up all this Revolutionary and Civil War history. And I can't stop playing Hamilton. I mean, I've been even just before we were podcasting, I'm playing some. Well, Elizabeth's coming on. She's like grooving and dancing. But it doesn't matter where we're at. Wherever we're at, there's opportunity, and there's a doorway of opportunity that's facing my wife and I right now. Somebody on my Facebook, it's actually a relative that says, "Oh, Seattle is a nasty city," and I'm like, you know what? So doesn't matter. We can maybe bring a little bit of love and grace. And Seattle itself has a huge homeless problem, and the city officials there, who are not necessarily politically aligned with our beliefs, believe in what it is that we do and how we help people. And they have granted us incredible sums of money to help them, deliver with the homeless situation. So we've learned a long time ago, just whatever he says to you, just do it. Just get in there and do all your work to the honor and glory of God. And then when it's all said and done, it doesn't matter whose name is on the plaque. The degrees on your wall don't mean nothing if you don't, hey, that whole thing on 1 Corinthians 13, when that's read at a wedding, listen to it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, good point. Well, we look forward to getting more reports from you from that great Northwest. And also, that book that you have in the back burner, I would see us encouraging you in that. What do you think?
Well, that book, Jeff, is it's still percolating. I got 6 chapters of it done. I haven't written for a little bit here. I think I'll spend a little bit more time writing when I'm not driving my wife all over the Northwest. Our travel schedule for the next couple months is going to be something else, because we're really wanting to get to know our officers and get to know their communities and different things that they struggle with. But I am going to knock out some time, and I'll still have a presence online, timfoleyonline.com. We'll say that one more time, timfoleyonline.com. We'll still be there. And I'm in negotiations for being on another podcast with 2 other people. So, my voice might be on the airways, but it won't be through the national office. So, we'll do that kind of stuff, but you just keep bugging me, and maybe I'll feed you something now and then, and I do know all about ghostwriters, and I can write you stuff, Jeff, and we put Elizabeth's name on it. We'll give her a byline.
Yeah, as long as you don't take her with you, we're okay.
Well, we got a lot of job openings where we're going. Yeah, but I'm hoping that I'll continue to write, and I'll continue to support Crest Books. I'm so excited. You've got about 6 or 7 books in the queue for Crest Books. Some good stuff from new authors and old authors alike. And so, I'm going to let some of those folks get a voice out there. And, I could have pushed it really hard, Jeff, the last few weeks here and got you a manuscript, right. But I really felt our colleague, Major Jason Swain, this was an opportunity to get a byline for him and get a little bit of credit to a man who has got a brilliant encyclopedia mind of history. And so Under Two Flags will come out this summer. And I'm excited about that.
Good. Wonderful. Well, all we can say is God bless you, and thanks for all you do.
Well, this is at the beginning of this, before we came online, you said you really didn't want to do this podcast. I didn't want to, this particular episode. I didn't either. A farewell in most of our appointments. I could say pretty much all of our appointments with the exception of one, but I won't. There's always that one that an officer has. It's always difficult, and it's always emotional. We attended when we moved from being divisional youth secretaries, running summer camps and stuff to San Diego, our summer camp staff did a farewell for us. And I thought, Jeff, I thought I was attending my wake. I thought we had died. I mean, these people were crying at the mic, and it went on for hours. And then I was just like, okay, enough, guys. We're still alive. I'm not dead yet, to quote Monty Python.
Right.
But it's been a great joy. We've had a lot of good things happen to our family while we were here. We've had some tragedy happen in our family as well. Jeff, I had the opportunity to play around, and I'll always remember LTA, Little Theater of Alexandria, getting cast. I got cast in 2 shows and had a lot of fun doing Christmas Carol. And then I was going to do something in the show called Sister Act, and that never got mounted because of the pandemic. So, I love the theater things. I love the history. My youngest daughter graduated from George Mesa just recently and is going to settle down here. So we'll be back out. My son got his act together, came here for a little bit, for a year or so, was with us, and he's moved on to Missouri. Very proud of him. And then I guess, Jeff, the big thing for us is we're going out, and we'll be 3 hours from that grandson of mine, who my grandson Callum is learning how to play chess.
Oh,
and he's
look
brilliant.
out.
He's brilliant at it. My daughter and grandson, they love playing table games, and I hate playing table games, except I will do it for my grandson. So they'll only be about 3 hours from us. So on a personal note, I want to thank both you, Elizabeth. Thank you for your vibrant and positive spirit. You're the real deal. And I can't sing your praises enough of all the different things that you do so positively. I wish you all the best in your own personal future. And I can't see anything but blessings ahead for you. And Mr. McDonald, you are a gentleman, a scholar, a knowledgeable source. You've brought the continuity. You support and love the ministry of the Salvation Army. You have sat in on the publications team almost as long as I've been a Salvation Army officer, and I'm finishing my 39th year of doing this. Every day, every encounter I had with you was real, was genuine, was a lot of fun. Now, this isn't my final goodbye, because we're recording this. It's not like I'm leaving in an hour.
Right.
No, my wife is texting me going, "Are you almost done?" Because
no, you're not done yet. Here, no.
But I wish all the best for you and for your wife and for your grandson and your kids and your future. Thank you for what you've done and for your godly leadership over each issue as editorial director, each issue of the magazine. I hope you've enjoyed our time together as much as I have.
Oh, yeah, indeed I have. It's just been, wonderful. It's a privilege.
But it's been a lot of fun, and I want to thank all the faithful listeners and fans of the Fight for Good podcast. I think, Jeff, we went from, a couple people to maybe about, 15. I don't know. Elizabeth, we have quite a few downloads, I think.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Be proud.
And we also gave birth and inspiration for the Battle Line podcast. So, and we encourage you to download Battle Line. I just love the Satterleys so much, and they've been just a great addition to our team here. So we encourage you to listen to Battle Line podcast. And also, Captain Matt has a real great presence online with his Overhead Transparency Youth Ministry reports every week he puts out. So a lot of good stuff, and I look forward to seeing a lot more stuff, good things coming out of the publications team as you move forward. Well, that's going to end this episode of the Fight for Good podcast. Be sure to subscribe to Fight for Good wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to follow the War Cry and Peer Magazine on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Well, until next time, and this is my last time, one last time, this has been the Fight for Good podcast. I wish you all God's blessings and peace in your life, and continue to listen to future episodes of the Fight for Good podcast. Bye for now.
Subscribe to Fight for Good wherever you listen to podcasts.